Okay, so body's off this morning. We can get a better look at the chassis now. Everything's pretty dirty. I think my next step is I'm going to pull this motor out of it, and then I think I'm going to wheel it outside and give it a good cleaning and see if we can get some of this garbage off here and go from there. All right, so if you've never pulled an air-cooled Volkswagen engine, this is actually a pretty good way to see everything, so I figured I'd show you. The first thing you're probably going to have to do, you're going to have like, there's an 8, I have an 8mm wrench. There's generally, if this will come off, there is a throttle cable going into here with an 8mm barrel nut. This is Dune Buggy stuff, so everything's, you know, clipped. Doesn't have like the cable the way it's supposed to be. The end is missing, so it's just literally a piece of steel cable sticking through here. So let me see if I can, if it's going to come apart easy or if it's going to fight. All right, so that actually wasn't too bad. And this is all it is. So you've got a hole through the center. The bolt tightens up. Sometimes it'll be a screw and it pinches the cable. This particular one, it's just got a piece of steel cable. They clipped the end off to shorten it because the chassis has been shortened. So that's all that is. And then you pull it out through the backside. Now that's free. Now, if this was less of a project here, if it was your regular car, you'd obviously have wiring to disconnect. If you had heater boxes hooked up, you'd have cables going to the heater boxes. Let me think what else there'd be here. You get a fuel line. This one, again, is just kind of cut off from the chassis. Typically, your fuel line would head back to this steel pipe here. This one's excessively long. That's not normally how they would be. They would usually come out of this hole down here. Just a little short piece. And then you'd have a rubber line coming up through here and a piece of steel on the engine that fed to the rubber line in between. To get this engine out, what I have is, I have this really old floor jack that has, let me see if I can, I'll show you, I had it up already. Has a huge top on it. The head on this thing is huge, and that's why I use this one to pull engines whenever I can. It's got a rope on it because it doesn't, the handle will drop on you if you're not paying attention. The spring is gone. This jack's probably as old as this chassis, so, and you just put a little bit of pressure on the bottom of the engine is the way I like to do it, right on the oil screen plate. And then from there, you get 4 bolts that hold these in. Get you at the right angle here. First one, obviously, if this is in a car, this is going to be a whole lot harder to access. And this has got the wrong style bolt on it. This should have a flat edge that hooks the starter and won't allow it to spin, because when this is in a car, you're gonna have a firewall here. Behind the Beetle, you're gonna have the back seat portion, so you're not gonna be able to see any of this. So this would normally be kind of stuck on there. I can show you the bolt, but it's like a half moon with a flat edge on it. It'd typically look like that. So you get a flat head on there, and it would sit in like this, and it would lean against this starter so that when you go to loosen this, it can't walk back and forth. This particular one, somebody just stuck a regular bolt through it. So this is kind of typical of a car like this, where someone you know, someone built this car at home at some point, and who knows over the year what's kind of been done to it and done correctly, not done correctly, clearly. So who knows? So you get these off. This is actually, these bolts, this one won't even slide out with the starter bolted in, so that's not a problem though. On this side, the earlier cars will actually have a nut back here on this side. This is a later dual port block case, so it's got a threaded portion to it right there that fits into, instead of having a nut. Let's see if I can get this. And I was just going back and forth to try to break pressure on that. See if this guy will fit on there. It's a lot easier with a ratcheting one if it'll fit. And these are just 17 millimeter. One more. And now, let me see if I can get you to a point where you can see underneath better. So you've got a nut on both sides. Let's see if I can get in here. Usually you're doing this under the car. These are pretty gummy, so it's a lot of, this transmission I've been leaking for a long time. I'm not even sure if there's anything in it. It does work. I took it through fourth gear out on the road, and it shifted fine. It seemed like everything worked fine. So the plan right now is to reuse this transmission for now with a standard size engine on it and everything. That's just a 17 millimeter nut again. We've got on the other side, same thing. Let's see if I can get you set up in here. Try to see it a little better on this side. Yeah, normally you'd be laying underneath the car at this point, and I like to come in through underneath in there, or if you have to, up over on this side, wherever you can get it. Sometimes it takes a little back and forth to get these bottom ones if there's stuff in the way, and this car seems to have a lot of stuff welded onto the frame horns. Probably had like a buggy bumper at one time on the back of it. This thing's gummy. It's a hot day out, so I'm trying to get this apart and see if I can get this outside and cleaned up a bit before it gets too hot. All right. So there's that. So right now there's no bolts, nothing holding that in except old grease junk, everything else. So let me get off to the side here. Get you straightened out. And it should be as easy as giving it a tug. I may have to come down just a hair. There it is. That down. That's it. So that's out. See the clutch back there. Everything's pretty rusty. Looks like something's leaking, either the front seal on the transmission or the rear main. Probably, maybe both. There's a lot down in there. I can't even tell. It doesn't even smell. Or it just smells like gas in here so bad I can't smell it, one or the other. But it's I think it's probably the rear main. It's probably engine oil. But that's it. That's all there is to pulling one of these engines out. Obviously, it's a whole lot harder when there's a body on there and you know, the back end of a Beetle and everything else in here. Makes it a little trickier. Takes a little bit more time. But overall, I mean, even in a Beetle, you can generally have one of these engines out in a half hour or so. All right. I am going to pull off all this excess wiring that I have on this thing. Pull off anything else that I don't want to get wet, which I don't think that's anything. I'm pretty sure everything's fine. Maybe I'll pull that starter off there because it seems to work just fine. And we will try to degrease this thing. Give us a starting point for something to build off of. All right, so I got the chassis pushed outside. I bought some of this degreaser. I don't know if it's any good or not. I've seen other guys online use it. Supposedly it's like biodegradable and everything. So I guess that's good. But I threw a pan underneath here and I've got a oil absorbent pad under there that's gonna hopefully catch, you know, most of the grease and grime that falls off this thing. And we'll see what happens. I'm gonna give it a good spray and let it sit for a little bit. I'm gonna pressure wash the whole chassis afterwards anyway, but I'd like to try to get some of the gunk off so that it's not all over the yard before I get crazy with it and spray it down. So we'll let that sit. It already actually seems like it's starting to pull it off of here, so I don't know, maybe it's good stuff. I mean, that's just with spraying it. So all right, we'll let it sit. All right, this degrease has been sitting on here for probably 20 minutes. I haven't scrubbed it or done anything, which obviously it's probably going to need that, but I just wanted to spray it, let it sit for a little bit, and then try to rinse it off and just see how good it does. So far, that's actually pretty good. I'm kind of impressed. So look at this. It actually took it down quite a bit. I mean, there's obviously still grime on there, but it took quite a bit off. I don't know if, maybe I should have tried hosing it down first, but just to see how much it's actually taken off. But it seems like, I mean, it seems like it took a lot off. These brake hoses, these were put on, I think we did them, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 years ago, and they were just covered with just dirt, so those cleaned up obviously really quick. But you can see right in here where I hit it with the water, it wiped it right down. Okay, I might let this dry a little bit and then hit it again, and maybe go over it with like a nylon brush or something, just to kind of loosen some stuff up and see where that gets us. But that's, I mean, that's cleaner than I thought it was going to do, so it's good. Get the big pieces off, and then I'll move it over and hit it with the pressure washer. I'm just trying to keep as much of this grease and mess off of the driveway as I can, just so it doesn't track everywhere. And I don't know what it'll do to the lawn. Not that my lawn's that great anyway, but try to keep it halfway decent. So, all right, so that's pretty good for, you know, $6 bottle of degreaser right there. And I still got a lot left. So I have the front end soaking right now, same situation. It wasn't nearly as grimy as that, but it's got a lot of, I think it's just road dirt on most of it that the pressure washer will probably take off, but I figured I'd try degreasing it first. And this was a clean pad, so you can see where it's dripping. It is pulling the dirt off. So pretty good. We'll go from there. Okay, so the chassis has been cleaned off. We left it out in the sun here for a few hours to kind of dry off. Everything cleaned off really good. That degreaser seems to, for the money, it seems to work really good because it's pretty cheap. Transmission, you can see all the clumped on grease all over the sides. All seems to have pretty much completely come off. Looks good. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. I did find a couple more holes in the floor, and I think the frame head's going to need a little bit of work. That side's a little squished right there. See if we need to fix that. And it appears to have a little bit of rot on the bottom side that I'm going to have to do some work to. So let's get it inside and we'll start ripping it apart even more.